This is one of the most powerful stories I've come across, and it's true. Paul Geidel held the distinction of being the longest-serving prison inmate in the United States. Born in 1894 in Hartford, Connecticut, to an alcoholic saloon owner who died during his childhood, Paul was raised in an orphanage before going to work as a hotel bellboy at age 14. In the year 1911, at the age of 17, Paul robbed a wealthy stockbroker named William Jackson, who was staying at the New York hotel where Paul worked. During the robbery, he strangled his victim to death. 2 days later, Paul was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. He served 68 years and 296 days in various New York State prisons. Paul remained in prison for decade after decade as the world around him underwent profound shifts, including the Great Depression, the New Deal, 2 world wars. Generations of inmates came and went, and only he remained. As the elder of the prison, he earned a certain prestige among other inmates and security guards who placed him in charge of the prison library. In 1974, at the age of 80, and after 60 years of imprisonment, disaster struck Paul. Someone found his file and decided it's time to release him. But Paul wasn't interested in freedom. He had no idea how to live life as a free human being, especially not in a fundamentally different world than he remembered. The last time he had roamed the earth as a free person, cars were a rarity. Telephones were a luxury reserved for the wealthy. Airplanes operated in military battles. Geidel appealed to the court. He asked them to let him remain in prison, and the judges agreed to let him stay for another 6 years. He was finally released in 1980 at the age of 86 after 68 years of imprisonment. After leaving prison, he lived for another 7 years before he died in 1987 at the age of 93. Wow, I ask myself, is this story not true for some of us as well? Is it possible that many of us, perhaps subconsciously, prefer the predictable life of emotional prison over a life of true liberation, a life of depth, authenticity, vulnerability, spontaneity, and bliss? Is it possible that I carved out for myself unconsciously a respectable position in my emotional prison? My coping mechanisms have worked so well for so long. So despite the anxiety, the inner deep awareness that I'm stuck, the numbness, the dissonance, I really don't want to let go of my fake security. I like my prison. The world out there is too unpredictable. I have found my place here. I have a friend who shared something very moving with me. He had a very difficult childhood. He endured abuse, neglect, and profound trauma. At 50, he began an intense healing journey for a few years, which gave him tremendous awareness of all of his crazy coping mechanisms and all of the crippling habits and reactions he developed over the decades in order to survive in a dangerous world. Despite his growth, he realized that a part of him did not want to let go of the stories that had come to shape his dramatic life. Part of him did not want to let go of all the pain and anger. He was invested in staying in a psychological prison, even if it was crippling him. This was his witness to all the pain and abuse. This was something that made him who he is. But once you kindle the flame of your soul and you experience, maybe for the first time, who you are on the inside, an infinite expression of divine bliss, love, light, and joy, there is no turning back. All my coping mechanisms lose their appeal in the presence of my inner glow. Tonight, as the entire menorah glows so beautifully, reflect on this question. If you had no fear, who would you be? Who would you become? Happy Chanukah.